Good evening, I'm Clifford Richards. First of all, we take a look at the headlines.
The President instructs the police not to accept complaints pertaining to leasing arrears until the concessionary period granted for the repayment of leasing installments expire. Examinations for final year students of universities commence from the 22nd of this month. The construction of houses outside urban limits to be carried out according to a new plan in the future. Curfew to be limited to 4 hours from tomorrow. The export processing zones that continuously provided services during the corona outbreak.
Moving on to the stories in detail. The government is strictly monitoring as to whether the concession on repayments granted for individuals who have purchased vehicles through lease is being implemented accordingly, as the method adopted by certain leasing companies to seize vehicles of those who have failed to pay their loan installments is unlawful. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa yesterday instructed the police that no room should be left to continue with this practice. Restrictions on economic activity and day-to-day public life had to be imposed to control the spread of coronavirus. Thereby, the government granted several concessions for those adversely affected as per Circular PS/CSA/16/2020 issued on the 23rd of March bearing the signature of the Presidential Secretary. Clause number 2 suspends for a period of 6 months the collection of repayments pertaining to lease agreements entered into by three-wheeler owners. In addition, as per Clause 9 of the Circular PS/CSA 18/2020 issued on the 30th of March to the Secretaries of Ministries of Finance and Public Administration bearing the signature of the Presidential Secretary, concessions in terms of lease repayments have been granted for around 1.5 million self-employees that utilize three-wheelers, trucks, school buses and vans for their self-employment endeavors. In the event of such concession being granted, the method adopted by leasing companies and finance companies to seize vehicles of those who have failed to pay their loan installments is a violation of the government regulations and is illegal. Therefore, the President has instructed the police to take steps to stop this practice. The President has instructed Acting IGP C.D. Vikamarotne not to accept complaints from leasing companies pertaining to the non-payment of repayment installments until the concessionary 6 months period ends. The President also instructed the police not to entertain complaints from leasing companies after seizing of vehicles, as the method adopted by leasing companies in this regard is illegal.
Now, the Ministry of Higher Education states that the examinations of final year students of all faculties at universities will commence on the 22nd of this month. The move is explained further at a media briefing held at the auditorium of the Department of Government Information today. Chairman of the University Grants Commission, Senior Professor Sampath Amaratunga, said that the Faculty of Arts of the University of Colombo will recommence on the 29th of this month, whilst the Faculty of Education will also recommence on the same day. He further stated that the Faculty of Law and the Faculty of Science will recommence on the 29th of this month for the final year students for their examinations. The Faculty of Agriculture of the University of Peradeniya will open on the 28th. The UGC chairman explained that in this manner, examinations of various faculties will have to commence from the 22nd of this month and need to end by the 15th of August. The UGC chairman further explained that the University of Sri Jawadanapura will open for fourth-year students in August. However, all examinations will be conducted by the 15th of August. Explaining the seating arrangements of the examinations, the UGC chairman stated that they hope to hold the examinations for the fourth-year students by having one student in one room of the hostels. He also stated that all administrative staff need to report to their service points from Monday.
Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa says the construction of houses outside the urban limits should be done according to a new plan. Speaking at a gathering held at Temple Trees yesterday, the Premier stated thereby housing villages should be created in a manner in which the environmental impact is minimized. Well, this discussion was held with the officials of the National Housing Development Authority, at which the progress of the housing projects launched by the authority were discussed and proposed projects were introduced. The Premier also focused his attention on the progress of the program titled Obatagyak Ratata Hetak, that is the housing or a house for you, a future for the country, which has been launched under the vision of the Prosperity Manifesto of the President. The National Housing Development Authority donated 2.5 million rupees for the COVID-19 Healthcare and Social Security Fund. The discussion was also attended by Secretary to the Prime Minister Gamini Srinath, Secretary to the Ministry of Urban Development, Water Supply and Housing Facilities Dr. Priyatbandu Wikrama, and Chairman of the National Housing Development Authority Renuka Pereira.
Now, another rehearsal on holding the general elections while complying with health and safety guidelines took place today. The rehearsal took place at the Nuragala Mahavidyalaya at Dimulagala in Polonnaruwa. Due to the spread of the coronavirus, the general election will be conducted giving emphasis to the guidelines mandated by the health sector. Today's mock election involved the participation of 200 voters, at which returning officers of the Polonnaruwa and Ampara districts specifically educated the voters of the new procedures under which the election is to be held. Steps were also taken to educate the police officers on duty as well. All OICs of the Polonnaruwa district joined in the observations of the election rehearsals.
Early humans living in Sri Lanka 48,000 years ago created tools from animal bones, they say, and used them to hunt monkeys and squirrels, according to a new study. This represents the earliest evidence of the bow and arrow technology outside Africa to date. The research was published in the journal Science Advances. The archaeological breakthrough was reported by many global media giants, including the National Geographic and CNN channels. Well, the artifacts range in the age from 48,000 to 4,000 years old and include 130 bone arrow tips, the oldest arrow tips found outside of Africa, as well as 29 bone tools for making bags or clothing, and a handful of ornamental beads. Archaeologists discovered the objects as they excavated the cave and believed they correspond to 4 distinct phases of human habitation of the site, with arrowheads and owl-like tools first appearing in the earliest phase. 30 items from the site have also been dated using radiocarbon technology, allowing research to create a timeline and see how the tools grew more sophisticated over the centuries. The archaeological excavation and the research was jointly conducted by archaeologists from Sri Jawaharlal University and from several other countries, including Australia. As modern humans presumably made their way along the coasts of South Asia into Sri Lanka about 48,000 years ago, they didn't enter the dense forest right away. The first people arriving on the island were probably living along the coast, says archaeologist Oshan Wedage of the University of Sri Jawaharlal in Sri Lanka, who has led a number of excavations in and around the Fahan Lena cave. And he has said that the population grew. Some descendants may have moved into the rainforest. The new environment would have required some important innovations. In the plains, people were hunting big animals, living in large groups that were easy to spot and target. But the tropical forest, many prey are very agile and may live in high trees. A spear isn't particularly useful for catching a monkey or a squirrel. In a forest, you need something that's swift and that can go high. Bow and arrow are ideal for such an environment. In turn, the monkey bones made excellent material for the new arrow tips.
Moving on to more local stories now. Due to the spread of the coronavirus over a period of around 2.5 months, economic activities in the country could not proceed as usual. However, currently the country has almost returned to normalcy. The contribution of many individuals in strengthening the economy of the country, even in the wake of the disease risk and during curfew, is absolutely praiseworthy. 12 export processing zones come under the purview of the Board of Investment. These are located at Katunayaka, Biyagama, Koggala, Pallikale, Merigama, Vatupitiwala, Malvatta, Sitavaka, Horana, Mirijawala and Mavatagama. Over 1,000 institutions function within these export zones, contributing to 80% of the industrial export revenue of the country. The corona pandemic dealt a severe blow gradually and globally. However, the government took steps to ensure the continuation of many essential services in the country, as well as to continue with the operations of factories under the BOI without bringing production to a halt midway. These zones provide employment to around 525,000 staff. Maximum health facilities have been provided on their behalf. Even though a difficult time period had to be faced, it was significant to note that all institutions of the BOI were able to deliver their orders without delay.
Well, the number of fully recovered COVID-19 patients in the country exceeded 1,000 today. Thereby, as of today, 1,252 patients have been discharged from hospitals upon fully recovery. 621 patients are undergoing further hospitalized treatment today. 4 COVID-19 infected patients were reported in the country. Well, according to the report issued by the Epidemiology Unit, as at 10 a.m. today, within the past 24 hours, 56 patients have been discharged from their respective hospitals. Thereby, as of today, the number of fully recovered patients stands at 1,252. This is a percentage of 66.45. The percentage of patients undergoing further treatment is 32.96. 11 COVID-19 deaths have been reported in the country so far, and this counts to 0.58%. 2 of the patients identified today are returnees from Qatar. One is a returnee from Chennai, India, whilst the other was identified from amongst Navy personnel. Yesterday, 3 COVID-19 infected patients were detected in the country, out of which 2 were Navy personnel, whilst the other was a returnee from Qatar. Meanwhile, 1,309 PCR tests have been conducted yesterday. A group of migrant Sri Lankans who were stranded in the Maldives due to the epidemic arrived in the island this morning. The group of 291 were directed to PCR testing at the airport and have been accommodated at 4 hotels close to the airport until the results are received. Meanwhile, the government has taken steps to further relax the curfew imposed to control the epidemic further. With effect from tomorrow, curfew will be in place in all districts in the island from 12 midnight to 4 a.m. and until further notice. The government calls on the public, when engaging in day-to-day activities and in the operations of the public and private sector organizations, to fully adhere to the health guidelines mandated for the control of COVID-19.
Now, taking a look at the global situation, Brazil's COVID-19 death toll overtook Britain's on Friday to become the second highest in the world after the United States, according to the numbers released by the Brazilian Health Ministry. Now, Brazil's COVID-19 death toll is the second highest in the world, with 41,828 dead.
Brazil's COVID-19 death toll overtook Britain's on Friday to become the second highest in the world, with 41,828 dead. The numbers are second only to the United States. Brazil's health ministry has reported more than 1,200 deaths a day since Tuesday, a mounting toll as the country looks to ease quarantine restrictions and reopen businesses. It's a move called for by President Jair Bolsonaro. The right-wing leader has minimized the gravity of the novel coronavirus, dismissing it as a little flu. He's accused state governments of exaggerating the number of infections and deaths to undermine him. The World Health Organization says there are hotspots in the major cities, but overall the country's health system is coping. A recent poll showed 52% of Brazilians now favor easing quarantine restrictions, with 44% against.
And coming back home, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa has instructed the relevant sections to expedite the reconstruction work of the Thuparama sacred site under the supervision of the Department of Archaeology. A discussion on the development process in the Thuparama sacred site was held at the President's office yesterday. Well, the Thuparama has been documented in the chronicles of the country as the very first stupa to be constructed. However, currently unauthorized constructions in the vicinity of the sacred site are an interference to the devotees and to the external duty of the area. The Thuparama Chaitya Ramadhikari, the Venerable Kahalle Nyaninda Thera, had submitted an appeal to the President requesting for land disputes in the land areas of the sacred site to be resolved. Thereby, taking into consideration the issues, a discussion was convened yesterday on the development process around the Thuparama sacred site. The President pointed out the significance of developing the Thuparama sacred site as a shrine of archaeological value. With all required facilities, the President instructed the relevant officials to prepare a plan in this regard speedily and complete restoration work within 2 years, as the Vatadaga of the Thuparama has an archaeological and historical significance. The President emphasized that all constructions should be designed in a manner in which a visitor can get an understanding without having to read through books. The President gave instructions for access roads to be paved for development work and also recommence in the land areas belonging to the Thuparama until the acquisition of land is complete. The Chaitya Ramadhikari of the Ruan Valley Sai, the Venerable Dr. Pallegama Hemaratana Thera, stated that although a decision had been taken in principle 20 years ago to hand over the premises of the old Bhikkhu University at Anuradhapura to the Ruan Valley Chaitya Rama, the transfer of lands has still not taken place. The President instructed the relevant units to transfer the presently unutilized premises of the Bhikkhu University to the Ruan Valley premises immediately. The discussion was also attended by many prelates of the Mahasangha, several ministry secretaries, and director of the Central Cultural Fund and the Director General of Archaeology.
Now, in the meantime, the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna commenced raising awareness amongst local government representatives and activists of the party in the Kurunegala district, adhering to health and safety guidelines today. The awareness-raising session were conducted in the electorates of Katugampula, Dambadeniya, Polgahavela, Kurunegala, Mavatagama, Dodam Gaslanda and Hiriala. These were organized with the attendance of a limited number of participants while adhering to guidelines set out by the health authorities and maintaining social distancing. The participants' body temperature was tested and facilities for hand washing and hand sanitizing were available, while face masks were also distributed. The series of meetings which are being organized upon the guidance of the founder of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna, Basil Rajapaksa, focused on raising awareness on practically implementing the Vision of Prosperity Manifesto and facing the forthcoming general election.
420 members of the Hambantota District Archaeological Association, who initially supported the Samagi Janabalawegaya, have pledged their support to the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna. Well, this group also organized a puja at the Henakadua Vihare at Tangol. These members of the Archaeological Association alleged that the leader of the Samagi Janabalawegaya, Sajit Premadasa, by providing employment opportunities through irregular means, has made a large number of youth destitute.
Now, in the meantime, moving back into China, a Beijing district put itself on a wartime footing and the capital banned tourism and sports events today after a cluster of novel coronavirus infections centered around a major wholesale market sparked fears of a new wave of COVID-19. We have this report from Reuters.
The southwestern Beijing district of Fengtai has put itself on a wartime footing after a cluster of coronavirus infections centered around market sparked fears of a new wave of COVID-19. A district official told a briefing that 45 people out of 517 tested with throat swabs at the Shinfadi market had tested positive. The market was shut down at 3 a.m. local time on Saturday after two men working at a meat research centre who had recently visited the market were reported to have the virus. It was not immediately clear how they had been infected. 11 neighbourhoods in the vicinity of the market, which claims to be the largest agricultural wholesale market in Asia, had been locked down with 24-hour guards put in place. A city spokesman told the briefing that all 6 COVID-19 patients confirmed in Beijing on Friday had visited the market. The capital has suspended sports events and tourists from other parts of China effective immediately, and has dropped plans to reopen schools on Monday for students in grades 1 through 3 because of the new cases.
Now moving back home, the 186th annual feast of the St. Anthony Shrine Kochikade was celebrated today. The chief celebrant was Archbishop of Colombo, His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjit. As permission is given for religious celebrations to be held adhering to health and safety guidelines, the annual feast was organized with the participation of a limited number of faithful devotees. The festive celebrations were conducted under the supervision of parish priests Reverend Fathers Jude Raj Fernando and Belusha Chamara. His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjit said last Sunday a request was made for permission to be granted for religious services to be held, and he is thankful to the President and the Prime Minister for the favourable response given by the government even before a week had passed. The Cardinal further stated that Holy Mass will be celebrated from tomorrow. His Eminence called on the faithful to attend Mass adhering to guidelines set out by the health authorities and to limit the number of attendees to 50 persons.
The final rites of the late president of the Ceylon Self-Employed Three-Wheeler Owners National Association, Sunil Jayawardena, who died after being assaulted by a group of staff members of a leasing company, will take place at the Burlesgamo Common Burial Grounds tomorrow. Well, the remains of the late Sunil Jayawardena currently lies at his residence at Thanayama Road in Casbah. A father of 3, he was 53 years at the time of his demise. Former Speaker Karu Jayasuriya and Minister Dr. Bandula Gunawardena paid their last respects today. The late Sunil Jayawardena's death occurred during an assault unleashed by a group of staff members of a leasing company on the 10th of this month. 8 arrests have been made, and the arrested people have been remanded until the 25th of this month. Well, that's it on the news today. Do enjoy the rest of the programs. Take care and good night.
Good night.